Hello, my crafty friends. It's Marie from Marie's Vermont Creations, and today I am bringing you a masculine birthday card using the Magic Iris. I recently placed an order and got some additional supplies for the Magic Iris, which includes this stamp set that I'm going to use for the sentiment. It says happy birthday, so I took one of the fallout pieces from the circle that I had that you have left over, and so I'm going to stamp the sentiment using some of this VersaFine Clear black ink, and I'm using a stamping block because I found it sometimes it's hard to get those little circles to sit in your MISTI, so I found it was just easier to use my block instead. So I'm going to get that stamped and I'm going to set it aside so that it can dry, because I am famous for smearing this ink because I don't wait long enough for it to dry, and then I end up touching it and making a mess. So then I'm going to start by putting together the Magic Iris. I have not done one of these in a little bit, so it did give me a little bit of a struggle, but I finally got there in the end. So I took some of this, it's really gray looking cardstock that I had in my stash, and I cut out the sausage pieces, and you need 3 of those. And so I'm just setting them into the notches that you create in one of the rings that you cut out with the little, I don't know what they call it. It has it's a weird looking one. It's one with all the pointy parts on it. That's what gets you the markings on here to where to put these sausages. And so now I'm just taking some glue dots, and you need to use glue dots for this to work. And these are just the mini ones. And when you cut out these sausage pieces, it actually etches in the X's of where you need to put the glue dots. And then I'll take another circle and adhere that right on top after I line up everything and make sure it's as close to lined up as it can be, trying to hold it in place. And then I'll put this down. And then I'm going to flip it over, and you cut out 3 of the tab pieces. And on the back of this, there is, markings of where you put your adhesive. So I've already done that. I'm just peeling off the backing, and you line up the ridge of the tab piece with the circle, and you do that for all 3. And then once I've done with that, I'm going to flip it over, and you want to place it so that one of the tabs is facing down and the other 2 are facing up. And I will put some double-sided adhesive on that handle piece, which is in the right-hand corner right there, because that's the next piece that we have to put in. And so then once I get that, I put all the adhesive on my tabs first, because that's what I'm going to use. You can use wet glue for this. I just don't tend to have the patience to wait for it to dry, and I always worry that it's going to squish out somewhere and then my Magic Iris won't work as well as I want it to. So now that I've done that, I am going to remember before I adhere this that I need to put the handle on. There's always a step when I'm working with this Magic Iris die that I always want to forget. Typically it's adding on the ring that I just took off, but this time I was so dead set I wasn't going to forget it that I almost forgot the handle piece. So you just kind of line it up to the right hand side of that tab and press it in, and then you lay your other ring on top, and I'm removing all the adhesive from the tabs, and you just gently lay them over the ring. They will not meet all the way in the center, and you don't want these to be too tight, because if they're too tight, then your iris will not move as well. So you just want them to be loose. And so you just put the other ring on, and the color of these rings doesn't matter. You won't see them. That's why I have the ring cut out of the wood grain cardstock in the left hand corner there. That's going to be the piece on the top that kind of finishes it off and gives it a good look. I did have to fuss with this a little bit to get it to work correctly, but I cut that out because it took me some troubleshooting to figure it out, but I did finally get it working smoothly. And I do find the more that I make these, the easier it is each time to do it. And I hadn't used it in a while, so I was a little rusty at putting it together. So I am just adding some wet glue to this so that it can cover the entire front of my Magic Iris. Of course, I had my own hair attached to the adhesive, so that's what I was taking off. And I'm just going to hold this so that it presses down and, adheres really well. And then I always, in between every step, I may not show it, but I do check to make sure that my mechanism is still working correctly. Well, now I'm going to adhere. There's a little piece that you can decorate the tab with. So I did matching paper that I used to decorate the top for the out of the wood grain. And this paper is old. It's from Brutus Monroe. I'm not sure if it's something that's even still available, but that's what I use for this. It's kind of a heavy, pattern paper. And I didn't necessarily need this piece, but I added the arrow, which is in that gray color, which you can already see is gray, but I wanted it to be flush, so I'm adding back in that piece so that everything is the same height with my tab. And so that's pretty much the Magic Iris put together. And you can decorate these in several different ways. I have videos where I have made these into shaker cards, and I can link those at the end of this video if you're interested in watching how I created that. I did one for Halloween, and it was a fun card project. So now that I have this all together, I have taken a piece of the same gray cardstock and I ran it through a wood grain embossing folder that I had in my stash. And this is cut to 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm just going to adhere this using some wet glue to my A2 size card panel. And then once I do that, I'm going to line up the Magic Iris so I can see where I want it on the card. And then I will open the iris all the way up so that I could line it up, and I want to adhere that sentiment circle so that it's in, line where the iris is going to cover it. It doesn't fit through the front, so you have to kind of guesstimate. I could have always laid down the Magic Iris and trace the inner circle with a pencil so that I knew exactly where to put my sentiment, but I just eyeballed it and made it work, and I used liquid glue so I had some wiggle room to be able to adjust it, which I ended up doing a couple of times. I am adding foam tape just to these back tabs because again, if you adhere this completely all the way to your card base, your Magic Iris will not work. So you could just put wet glue on these tabs, but I opted to do foam tape. I find it gives a little bit more clearance for the recipient to use the tab and move the mechanism to make the Magic Iris work. You could double this up and make it a little bit higher off your card base if you wanted to, but I'd also want to be mindful of postage if I decide to mail this. I don't want it to be too bulky. So I'm getting this open and lined up the way that I want it and just setting it down to give myself an eyeball of where I would like this. So I do have another masculine project that I have planned. Is there anything that you guys would like to see as far as masculine projects? Is there a theme you would like or anything you'd like me to work on? Definitely feel free to leave me a comment down below. I'm always open to suggestions of things you guys would like to see. I would like to thank everyone who's been watching my videos. If you've subscribed, if you're returning to my channel, I greatly appreciate it. If you are new here, welcome. I am very glad to have everyone. I really like interacting with everyone. If you leave comments or have questions, I definitely enjoy, any interaction on social media. So feel free to leave me a comment or a question, and I will do my best to get back to you. So now that I have the sentiment lined up where I want it, I'm just going to take off the adhesive for the foam tape and line this up over the sentiment. I left it at this. You could always add little characters or different things if you wanted to zhuzh up the card a little more, but I opted to leave it here because again, I don't have a recipient in mind for this project, so I can always continue to customize it if I change my mind, with who I'm actually giving it to. So that's going to be today's project with the Magic Iris. I do have some other projects in mind for using this die set, so stay tuned for that if you have interest. I do have a playlist also for the Magic Iris videos that I have done, and I will link that at the end of this video. And as always, I hope that you have a great day.